Okay, so just for our records, if you could state your name and your position.
Sure. Olga Lavrova, Assistant Professor at the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department.
So could you tell us a little bit about the SEPTET project?
Sure. SEPTET project stands for Sustainable Energy Pathways Through... Can we restart?
We will cut, yeah, we'll cut it.
Through Education and Technology.
So let's say that
okay,
again.
Let's say it. Sustainable Energy... SEPTET stands for Sustainable Energy...
Sustainable Energy Pathways through Education and Technology.
Okay. SEPTET project stands for Sustainable Energy Pathways Through Engineering and Technology. This is a project that we have at University of New Mexico, which is funded by National Science Foundation. And the goal of this project, according to NSF, was to bridge multiple disciplines together, such as not only engineering technologies, not only engineering sciences, but also social sciences, arts, digital media, and also social outreach to general public. So that is the goals of our projects, where we want to not only increase or improve particular technology, but we also want to make sure that everybody, starting from kindergarten level to grandparents level, can understand what are we trying to do and how will this lead to sustainable energy and sustainable living for our mankind.
What are the sustainable energy pathways?
This is a very, very broad question. Sustainable energy pathways can be described in a way that the way we use energy should not harm or should not make the life of our generations, of the generations after us, any worse than our own life conditions. So we shouldn't what am I trying to say? So we don't want to exhaust any of the fossil fuels that are currently fairly abundant. We don't want to leave no fossil fuels to our children for later. We also want to make sure that ways we produce energy is such that we don't create additional pollution. We understand that there is certain level of pollution that is associated with producing energy, electrical energy or any other energy, but to minimize that is important.
So what are the specific sustainable types of energy that this project is looking at?
In our case, specific energy source is solar as a primary source of energy. On top of that, we're trying to combine other energy sources that are always present around us, such as RF coming from either cell phone towers or TV towers, Wi-Fi coming from our Wi-Fi hotspots everywhere, pretty much everywhere in the buildings, in the coffee shops, on the street. We're also trying to combine thermal sources of energy, such as extreme heat that we normally don't like when we get into a hot car, but we can convert that and use that as a useful energy. Together with that, we also can extract some smaller amounts of energy from physical vibration, such as vibration of the bridge. That is converted to energy through piezo technology, and we can use that energy to power up smaller loads, such as lights on that bridge. So we want to combine as many energy sources around us as possible, and to make sure we use every single possible renewable energy source around us.
Okay, let's zoom in a little bit so we get away from the computers, and also so we have a different shot. I'm going to angle up a little bit. That's really good. So the next thing I want to ask you about, Olga, is who are the members of the team of SEPTET?
Okay, the members of the team are myself, and we have other members of the team are experts in different areas of technology. Starting from photovoltaics, Ganesh Balakrishnan is an expert in novel photovoltaic materials. Christos Christodoulou is an expert in RF energy and RF antennas. Tito Busani is an expert in materials processing, fabrication of new devices. And so is Sang Han. He's also a materials scientist. And we also have project members who are concentrating on arts and digital media, such as Andrea Poli and Nick Floor. And we also have very important contribution from Department of Mathematics, and Alexander Karatkevich and his student are contributing in terms of intense mathematical calculations.
So I know that, and I don't know if you want to talk about this, but I know that one of the original ideas of the septet was to create more efficient solar panels, and I wonder if you could talk about that, if you wanted to.
Right. So solar panels are efficient to some degree. There are, of course, limits to how efficient solar panels can be. There are fundamental scientific limits based on the conversion of photons into electron hole pairs, and depending on different material types, you can have better or worse conversion efficiency for different wavelengths. So currently, silicon-based photovoltaic devices or solar panels are limited to about 25% record-breaking efficiencies. You can have different materials other than silicon that are more efficient. However, they become more expensive. For example, triple junction devices can have efficiencies up to 40%, but at that point they are becoming so expensive that regular consumer cannot afford them for their regular daily life, for their appliances, for their household solar panels. So our goal was to improve the efficiency of specifically silicon devices, starting from silicon, and then think about any other improvements. So if we can add every single % increased efficiency to solar panels, this will help greatly in terms of our overall energy consumption. Think about yearly consumption in terms of how many kilowatt hours every device consumes, even a computer, even a laptop plugged in, even a cell phone plugged in. Large appliances consume much more. So if we can have an additional 1% of energy reduced by this consumption, this will help greatly the whole US grid, and US grid is currently fairly strained. So we want to improve overall energy efficiency picture and think about overall US grid smartness.
So it's part of the project you talked about is raising awareness and doing outreach. What is it that you think people need to understand better about this technology and the engineering?
Well, overall, people need to be very aware about how much energy they consume throughout their daily life, daily cycle. We turn on our appliances, sometimes we leave our lights on, and a lot of people don't pay attention to how much power they consume, or even if they do, they may not understand the actual scale of it, they may not understand how much a kilowatt hour is. So there is, of course, a niche of people who have these gadgets where they're obsessed about how much power they produce, consume, and they sit on and watch this on their computers. But we want to make sure it becomes more available to people who are not gadget nerds. So we wanted to bring out an idea of some more visual, some more acceptable to a regular consumer understanding of how much power is really consumed in their house. What can they do to improve? What can they do to conserve? And what can they do as a global society to think about sustainable ways of living? And this is where our partners from arts and social sciences come in, where we as engineers rely on them to come up with a more visual explanation of what is going on in science.
What do you think that, or let me rephrase that, in what ways does the general public need to understand more about what kinds of technologies are possible, or I'm wondering, like, I guess my question is more about how much support is there for these kinds of projects to be developed? Does there need to be more public knowledge and public support of these kinds of projects?
I think there is still plenty of room to grow in terms of public education and public understanding. And there are programs that are ongoing in schools, in higher education, but it's something that needs to be discussed and brought to our attention often, frequently. I actually compare this project to thinking about our human metabolism and the amount of energy we consume for our daily life through food is similar if you start thinking about the amount of energy we consume through our daily life through electrical energy. So we use a lot of energy during daytime, we use a lot less energy during nighttime. So the analogy is fairly similar. And so to develop that analogy, I want to bring up to everybody's attention the fact how much attention we now pay to the way to explain to people how they need to eat good food, sustainable food, healthy foods, and food grown in a manner that doesn't destroy the rest of the planet. So think about organic farming, think about sustainable farming, etc., etc. So the analogy again is there. We need to think about sustainable energy, sustainable production of energy, and not distracting our planet by producing this energy. So to take one step back, this is why we talk about eating well and having good food a lot to our children, to grown-ups, to adults, to everybody. So the same goes to electrical energy. We need to discuss that a lot, and sometimes people forget, and we need to remind them.
So what is it in your background that has led you to be involved in this project? What interests you in this project, and how does it fit into your overall research?
My background is semiconductor devices. So as my background, I was developing better devices such as solar cells. And as my outreach and as working with students and also working with general society, I had to always explain to people how there are different ways of energy, different ways of producing energy, and you don't necessarily, and the cheapest maybe coal burning factories, let me start again.